I could start to see this idea for how I could build a character. If I could build the muscles and look like the Schwarzenegger or Stallone character on screen, then maybe eventually one day you could take that frame and you could use it to become something like that. Well, it's interesting because I can remember probably around the age of 11 or 12 finally getting a chance to go and do an audition for a movie of the week that was rolling into the nearby city where I lived. Um, and up to that point, I think I'd just done some skits at school, and like I said, I was already starting to get this sort of self-conscious sense that these ambitions were very different from the environment that I was in on a day-to-day basis. And so when I went to that audition, I I found myself very self-conscious and kind of uptight and didn't want to, break the shield of cool that I tried to kind of begin to build for myself, so that I didn't, stand out like a sore thumb out there as the one guy that wanted to maybe get up on a stage one day and do a bunch of crazy things. It's interesting because at that moment, that's kind of when bodybuilding came into play. And I don't think it was planned in any way. My father, as I had mentioned before, because he was athletic, he never lifted weights or anything like that. But there were kids that were curious because he had kind of a gymnast's kind of physique. He had big shoulders and arms. And so kids started coming around with these bodybuilding magazines. My dad saw that I was interested in them because I started leafing through these and I recognized, oh, this guy looks like the muscle character we saw on TV the other day. It looks a little bit like my dad because my dad kind of had some development himself that way. And I think he cued into that kind of curiosity. And one day on my birthday, he showed up with a whole bunch of weights in the woodshed. And so we started working out. We started working out in the woods, or rather in the woodshed, in 20 below zero weather, sometimes with big mitts on. And, we'd come in afterwards. My mom would have a big meal prepared for us, and I'd be talking about the weights that I was lifting. And my mother would kind of roll her eyes a little bit, thinking, this will be one of those phases, hopefully, that he grows out of. So I think what that did for me was that bodybuilding, like I said before, created a context for how I could start to move forward in that environment with this sort of foundational stuff that I was growing up in. And I guess it's all foundational at that age, but I could start to see this idea for how I could build a character. If I could build the muscles and look like the Schwarzenegger or Stallone character on screen, then maybe eventually one day you could take that frame and you could use it to become something like that. Of course, the older you get and as you grow, the types of stories, the complexities that you want to portray and carry expand quite a bit. But at that age, I suddenly I realized, this fascination with Superman and a story, or Schwarzenegger in some action movie. It gave a context for how you could get out there and perform, and at the same time nurture something in an environment where you're trying to relate to the community. So that's where I began. Bodybuilding uh, started to kind of give me a track to run on, I guess. So I started competing and moving down that track because I also saw it was a way that people were getting exposure in magazines. So, the guys would show up at the bodybuilding shows taking photographs, and when the magazines would come out, I'd run to see what kind of coverage I'd gotten, and the hope being that, you know, um, at least it's public exposure, and in the context of the kinds of characters maybe that I would, visually like to appeal to at that age. So as I was doing that, I started getting more involved in acting in theater in high school, and then film cooperative, short films at the New Brunswick Filmmakers Cooperative. And these things started layering in together. And um, I was still, though, in an area where there wasn't a big industry happening. So as I was competing and as I was getting some notoriety through that avenue, and getting experience in the acting world to some extent through small community films and movies of the week that would roll into town, I was starting to try to come up with a way to make my own story so that I could put some of this into a context. And at first, I didn't think I was capable of it because all I had done at that point in terms of the film industry was done some acting work, and I had been lucky enough to get pulled onto a few film sets by the late producer William Vince, who got an Academy Award for his work on the movie Capote. And when he saw me, he actually needed a trainer, and he asked if I could show up at 5 in the morning to train him at the local gym. And I said absolutely right away. Everyone else was saying no because 5 o'clock in the morning was a bit too early for some of the staff. But I jumped on the opportunity to get to know the man, and he offered to bring me on to some of the projects that he was shooting to do some work behind the scenes, and a little bit in front as well, although I wound up actually dodging a part to do a bodybuilding competition that I'd been in preparation for. But I did spend some time doing lighting on those projects, and he encouraged me while I was on set to start producing my own material. And he said, "You don't want to be an actor, be a producer." And I thought he was crazy because it looked like a lot of work to me. And it is. But I really respected what he said, because over time I started realizing if you want to be in control of the kinds of characters, and if, especially if I wanted to do more with this frame that I was building in bodybuilding than just have it be an image of a physique, then I had to create something that gave that physique a story to tell. So that was when I started talking to people in the local film community about making my own documentary project. And they got really, really behind that in an incredible way. And that led me to producing my first feature documentary, which was called Facing Goliath. And now it wasn't the fictional film track that I had been kind of aiming for initially, but it seemed like a way to tell a story. And the limitations I had for resources and things like that, it seemed like a worthwhile story, and something I could do without having to know all the ins and outs of creating a feature film project.
I didn't know enough about the sport to really know how well he would do, but I felt that he definitely is going to be in the medal rounds, and he's definitely in there as a contender.
Let's welcome back competitor number 22, Sebastian MacLean.
I continued acting through that period of time, and we were shooting on weekdays and weekends when we could to get that film done. And we wound up getting that released in a variety of countries around the globe to get televised at the time. And that was due to a tremendous amount of support from the people in the city of Fredericton, New Brunswick, through New Brunswick Film and the Filmmakers Cooperative there, and all the people that participated. Ray included, who's unfortunately passed away now, but he left quite a story of inspiration there about transformation and facing struggles. He was a guy who was going blind, who had approached me about getting in shape, had never worked out before. So finally, I guess at that point, I felt like I was telling a story in the context of that physical bodybuilding frame that seemed worthwhile. And so that's why and how bodybuilding kind of connected me to the acting world, because then I continued with training and looking for other ways that I could start building stories out of these characters that weren't just strong on the outside, but had something strong to say on the inside. And that's what I was looking for. Of course, as an actor, anything that was coming my way in terms of auditions, good guys, bad guys, I was still interested in exploring all avenues of that. But there was a difference, I guess, between what I was writing and wanting to produce versus, what the market was going to see me as fitting. And I was feeling like I was in a good position when I started making films that portrayed the stories that I wanted to tell on the producing side. That kind of gave a bit of a guidepost for the kinds of characters that I wanted to carry in terms of a role. And also, as I got more deeply entrenched into acting, I started realizing that the bodybuilding would come and go. Sometimes you lose some shape for a particular role, or sometimes you need to add a little body fat or get rid of some. So it was a tool that became very useful for many other reasons, and sometimes the role didn't require that kind of muscular physique, but that adaptability was something that I was able to kind of embrace more fully through that process. And so that was really how bodybuilding helped kind of carry me into the world of acting. Well, it gave me a lot of tools, is what it gave me. I mean, bodybuilding, especially in that situation, required a lot, because I didn't live anywhere near a gym. And so I had to take a bus to go to school in one town where I went, where there wasn't really a gym, or at least not one that I knew of, where I could really train. And even if there was, it was even harder to get back from there if I missed the bus. So I would go to school, I would wind up hitchhiking or hitching a ride, sometimes with teachers, into another city that was another half hour, 20-minute drive away. And I'd work out, do my homework in a fast food restaurant nearby, go back and clean the gym, and then I would hitchhike all the way home. And that would be way in the country again. So I'd be getting home sometimes 11:30, 12 o'clock at night, hitting the hay and doing that whole thing all over again. And that determination and commitment and kind of putting myself through that grueling process. And that started probably when I was about, 15 years old. Prior to that, I'd been doing all my training in the woodshed, but there was this sort of compounding sense of belief that as I saw myself changing and growing, I could make it happen. I could get into the kind of shape I wanted to. And that baby step approach, but also the grueling kind of commitment to kind of get into the gym and make those things happen. And, rep by rep and night after night, standing under street lights in the snow and all of those things gave me a sense that however big the endeavor is, or however big the ambition is you want to build, it gave me a physical representation of building, this body, but it was also about building a career. You can do it as long as you're willing to push into the resistance and really grind it out. And as long as you're able to see small gains with every repetition, every little 5-pound ad that you can handle, and you can go from one state, which doesn't seem like it's anything like the end result, and you can get to that end result as long as you put those baby steps together and keep moving. So that gave me a tremendous foundation for, translating that into other things in life, because my career was a lot like that. I didn't get the explosive big break that you hear about in the business. I had to do it one rep at a time, and building, the strength and developing the career, sort of one layer of muscle at a time, to use that metaphor. And bodybuilding made me understand the workability of that and how that allows you to achieve something. I think if I hadn't had that, sometimes those small gains might not have felt like enough because you have this big goal in your head. And, you know, the break you're looking for, you want it to be at some point, some huge leap forward all at once. And just like in bodybuilding, my career didn't quite unfold that way. And thank goodness, bodybuilding kind of gave me a foundation for structure, discipline, accepting small gains, and being willing to really kind of press into the wind, so to speak, and march through the night to make it happen. So bodybuilding gave me quite a foundation for that.